is where we make our stand.
Hello YouTube, this is Magnolia Mo and you are watching my channel. Avatar: The Way of the Water came out in 2022 and that is the topic of discussion for this video. So last week I watched the movie on Disney Plus and I watched it in Dolby Vision and in Dolby Atmos. And this week I got my copy of the 1080p 3D Blu-ray disc and I ended up watching that. So I've watched it a couple times already. So this is basically the topic of discussion today. I want to actually offer up my thoughts, right, and my impressions between the two versions, right, from a picture perspective, 4K HDR Dolby Vision versus 1080p 3D Blu-ray disc, and then the audio presentation, right? The Dolby Atmos versus the DTS Master Audio that I did upmix using Aura 3D. All right, so let's get on with it. All right, so let's talk quick technical specifications, right? Avatar: The Way of the Water was released in 2022. Runtime is 3 hours, 12 minutes long. Sound mixes from IMDb are Aura 11.1, DTSX 12-track digital sound IMAX version, Dolby Atmos, IMAX 6-track, Dolby Surround 7.1. Aspect ratio is 1.85 by 1. The movie actually was shot in 4K 3D with a DI of 4K and also the 3D version, right? The 3D version is 1080p on the disc, so it's 1080p 3D on the actual disc that I got. It is a 2-disc. It's spread out into 2 discs for the 1080p 3D and contains a bonus feature on it disc, and then a regular 2D 1080p version, right? So total 4 discs in the set. It's got a digital code also that you can redeem, which I did, and I only got on my Apple TV. I only got with the digital stream through Movies Anywhere. I got the 1080p version with Dolby Atmos on Apple TV, and as you know, it is available on Disney Plus in Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos, and HBO Max in Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos. So what are my thoughts on the video quality, right? The 4K HDR Dolby Vision Dolby Atmos stream on Disney Plus versus the 1080p 3D Blu-ray disc, right? So I would be lying to you if I said that the 1080p 3D version looks a lot better than the 4K HDR Dolby Vision version of the stream does, right? Because of the science, right? There's just a lot more resolution, right, for 4K and especially HDR, right, compared to 1080p video, right? So right then and there, of course, the 3D will add a lot more depth to the image, inwards and outwards, because the movie was shot in 3D, right? 4K 3D, right? But unfortunately, we don't have hardware for 4K 3D. That would be awesome if you could watch 4K 3D, right? So it's a great example, right, is at the 6 minute 16 mark, right, where Neytiri and our guy are looking up because they see a star, right? Which is basically spaceships coming down, right? And I took screenshots, or actually pictures, so hopefully my camera does justice to this, right? But you can clearly see in that instance, right, that the 4K HDR Dolby Vision, image you could actually make out the texture of their hair, the skin. The HDR adds a lot more, highlights, right, to the overall picture. And then throughout the movie, the color gamut, right, is much more expanded, right, throughout, especially like, in the forest, and then our the overall scale of Pandora, underwater scenes, right? All of them are rich with colors, right? Even though the Disney Plus stream is most likely highly compressed, but you are still getting 4K and you're still getting a higher resolution, right? Flip side is what makes it enjoyable, in watching this movie on on a 3D projector or a 3D TV, is because the movie was shot in 3D. You are experiencing a very good three-dimensional image, right? So with good amounts of depths inwards and outwards, right? There are scenes, with the forest and the greenery with leaves, the plants kind of sticking out of the actual screen, right? And underwater scenes, right, where you can actually really feel the scale and the depth, of the image. So all of that makes the movie, enjoyable, right, in 3D, because it's shot in 3D. It's not post-processed, right, in 3D. Having said that, the 4K Dolby Vision HDR image, is better in terms of black levels, in terms of overall color, specular highlights, the HD. There are not a lot of HDR effects, but overall, in general, right, the high dynamic range kind of comes across, of the image when you're watching it in Dolby Vision. Especially on Disney Plus, right? So I can imagine, on a disc, which is going to be less compressed, but still compressed because the movie is 3 hours long, it'll look slightly better. I just don't have the disc to compare that to. But what do you like better, right? If you have a 4K TV or a projector, in your setup, I prefer watching this movie in 3D because it's shot in 3D. But to say that 3D was not too far off from the overall HDR and Dolby Vision and 4K image, it's not. It's not right, right? The 4K image, the HDR, in and of itself is better, but the movie is more enjoyable in 3D because it's shot in 3D. So I hope I got my point across when it comes to the comparison, right? Because you're comparing apples and oranges, right? If we were able to see it in 4K 3D and maybe HDR, then definitely, it's going to be a much better, the picture is going to be on par, maybe even better because of the three-dimensional quality of it, right? But it's not. It's a lower resolution. So just in and of itself, it's not going to have the same dynamic range that you have, on the 4K Dolby Vision stream. So that's about it for the video, in terms of comparison. Okay, so for video, in terms of video, I'm going to give it an 8.0. For the 4K Dolby Vision stream on Disney Plus. For the 1080p 3D video, comparing it to other 3Ds that we've seen recently, right, which haven't been a whole lot, I'm going to give it an 8.5 because it is a much better, much enjoyable, in 3D. But I'm not going to put the two up against each other, the 4K and the 1080p. They're two separate versions of this movie, in my opinion. And then for audio, when it comes to Dolby Atmos has that pinpoint, object movement, and you can, the mix itself, it's not a highly dynamic Dolby Atmos mix, but it is dynamic in terms of, there are objects or effects that go from front to back and side to side, especially again in the opening scene of the movie with the forest, right? The whole ambiance, right, of the forest. You actually get you're it's almost like you're in it, right? And you're in the forest, right? You're in Pandora. That's the effect that you get if you just close your eyes. It's a nice effect. upmixing the DTS Master Audio 7.1 mix to Aura 3D got me close to that Dolby Atmos mix. Alright, so here's the same scene with Aura 3D, only running my height speakers, as you can see on the Blu-ray 3D. So same sort of sound in the heights, but much more pronounced. There's some music in here too. And here's the forest. It lifted a lot more up to the heights, the upmixing did, than what Dolby Atmos has, and delivers on that Dolby Atmos track. So in terms of, it's not unnatural, right? It wasn't, I wouldn't say it was leaps and bounds, right? Ahead and enjoyable because I'm upmixing, that track, the DTS track to Aura 3D. I still prefer the Dolby Atmos track because of the pinpoint, right? Object movement, right? So specifically in around that 2-hour 15-minute mark, where when they're underwater, they're being chased, right, by Earth people. The effect, the Dolby Atmos effect, almost makes you duck, right? But when it comes to the upmixing of using Aura 3D, you don't hear that same effect in your height channels. But then there are other scenes in the same sequence right after that. There are some height effects that you can actually compare Dolby Atmos and Aura 3D, and Aura 3D does a great job of mixing that particular sequence, and you'll see a clip of that. In Dolby Atmos, you actually hear them hit those weeds and those leaves above you, as if to give you the impression that you're actually ducking under those, right? In Aura 3D, you just don't get that particular effect. So let's watch it. See? Not much there. Same scene in Dolby Atmos. Dolby Atmos, you'll hear it for yourself. It's limited, just to the heights because it's trying to create an overall 3D, bubble around you. So it's more in sync with the video, right? Here we go. So it's just music so far. Yeah. So same scene in Aura 3D. Very similar from an effects standpoint. I mean, I would say Aura 3D upmixing did a great job, right? Lifting the sound and creating a bubble. But from a pinpoint, object movement accuracy perspective, obviously the Dolby Atmos track, because it was designed, in a specific way, right, kind of wins out. So for audio, it's not a soundtrack that I'm gonna write home about, right? There's, I mean, a decent amount of bass, right, in the movie. There's good, effects. Most of the sound, most of the action is in your bed layers. You know, a lot of the height effects are basically soundtrack driven. So for audio, also I'm gonna give it an 8.0. For Dolby Atmos. For the DTS 7.1 track, because it's 7.1 and it's DTS, in and of itself, it would score high marks because it was designed really well. And then when you upmix it using Aura 3D, it just brings you to a next level. I would give it a 9, right? So those were my audio video ratings and my thoughts on this particular movie. Don't get me wrong, it is a great movie. You can, if you don't have a 3D projector or a 3D TV, you can still enjoy it in 4K HDR and Dolby Vision. And then if you have a 3D TV and a 3D projector, my recommendation is to watch it, in the 1080p 3D version, because that will give you the true, James Cameron intent, right? Because he shot it in native 3D, be it was shot in 4K 3D, but we're limited to 1080p 3D. It'll get you close to what his original vision was. So I hope you guys like this quick review of my of Avatar: The Way of the Water. And if you are new to this channel, please like this video, share this video, and subscribe to my channel, and be on the lookout for more videos such as this. So see you on the next one.